you need to bribe your kids, do it. Whatever you need to do. This is Rachel's Remedies, and today we're going to be talking about homeschooling. I know you want to talk about homeschooling. So, first off the bat, totally off subject, best ever pattern play. My kids, this was their favorite. If you have one toy, you can afford one toy. This is my favorite. It's these colorful wooden blocks, and they come with 40 cards. You pick a card and then you design it with your wooden blocks. Very, very good for neurological development. Loved, love, love this. Probably most played with, one of the most played with toys. I'll link everything down below. If you missed the first one, I'm talking about homeschooling. This is probably the most important set of videos I will make and leave for my children should something happen to me. And I left off talking about how I got to Spalding. The Spalding method is figured out how I learned how to write and to read, which I knew out of all the methods in the universe, that was the right one. And the way I knew it was the right one is every adult around me could not spell as well as I did, could not write as well as I did. Spalding method, which was imparted into me in the 1970s. And here I am now, I'm about to educate my children, and I know it's really important how they learn how to write and to read. And I also know that most of the schools are getting it wrong. Private Christian schools are getting it wrong. Public schools are getting it wrong. Kids' handwriting is horrific. So my goal was to empower my kids to be able to master the English language by 3rd grade. And I didn't care if they homeschooled after that. I just knew the first 3 or 4 years were the most important formative years. Now, once I knew Spalding was the right thing, and if you didn't watch my first video, I'll link it above. The second part was I got my hands on Romalda Spalding's book, and I started to try to teach it, and it was very confusing and very difficult. So I did that for about 6 months, 8 months, really, really struggled through it. My daughter was struggling even more. Romalda Spalding believes in print first. John Dewey introduced that in America in 1929, and illiteracy has taken off ever since. So she jumped on board with print first and felt like perfectly print letters, like making perfect letters was really important. Forming your letters was really important to learning the English language, and I believe she was correct. However, I had a real struggle with print first, and my daughter had a real struggle. Got to study with Dr. Samuel T. Orton. He was a neurologist who was really focused on dyslexia and issues and preventing even some of those issues, dyslexia and some issues that children were having when they're learning to write and to read. She got to help him and be his assistant and learn under him, and they both studied how best the brain absorbs the English language, how to best put the building blocks into the brain for the brain to be able to organize the building blocks to the English language. And what they discovered was this is a building block to the English language. This is not an A. This is an A, ah. And when a child sees this and you pound into their mind, this is not an A, this is an A, ah. I never sang the ABC song to my children. This letter should never have an apple next to it or any kind of drawing next to it. It should be plain black and white. When a child sees this, A, ah. This is a phonogram. And I had someone laminate this for me and make a little notebook out of these. I also have separate cards, but I loved this notebook. I liked the same, like going through all the phonograms in the same order. With my children at the kitchen table, I would keep it close to kind of where we're eating, and just to be able to kind of flip through them, have the kids hear each other say them. And that is huge. This is one of the biggest parts and the biggest fallacies I'm seeing in other reading programs is you're teaching the ABCs. What really scared me and alerted me to one of the clues I had to something is wrong with how the kids are learning how to read was I got a little leapfrog from someone for Christmas, and it went on the fridge, and you would punch it and it would sing a little song about each letter and what each letter says. And it was like, the A says ah, the A says A, la 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 la, the A says ah and A. And I thought, wait a minute, the A says ah too. I remembered this from kindergarten and really had a problem with the A not saying ah by the frog. So I called one of my friends and I said, hey, we have this leapfrog, and I think she's the one who gave it to us. How the leapfrog, love the leapfrog, it's really cute and everything. Where is the ah? And she said, oh, no, they learn ah and A in first grade, and then I think they learn ah in third grade. And when she told me that, I just thought, no, this is all wrong. There's so many things wrong with this. And so struggled with Romalda Spalding's physical book, got online and found Wanda Sinceri's Spell to Write and Read. And Spell to Write and Read is simply a woman and her friends who took the Spalding method, organized it for you and for me into 2 simple books, the Spell to Write and Read and the Wise Guide for Spelling. And so they took the Spalding method and they organized it for you in a nice little packet. And so when I found Wanda Sinceri, I knew, oh, okay, it did everything. All these light bulbs went on and I was like, oh, someone organized Romalda Spalding's method. Now, her method and what she and Dr. Orton discovered is the words of the English language. And what they did is they took the words, the most used words in the English language, and they organized them from word number 1 through word number 3,000. It's either 3,000, 2,000 or 3,000. It is number 2,000, okay? So each word, so the first word is top, okay? These first 20 words, the kids will start to learn these words, and I'm going to show you how they do it. When they start, they are going to write the words down, the word list. They start with word number 1. When they get to word number 300, they can read 80 to 90% of all books written in the library. And so what this does is from a very, very early age, they can read very interesting books. It's really, really exciting. It's ingenious. So we don't have cat, hat, and bat. We don't do it like that. We do, and of course, the is going to be one of the first words. So the words that your children are learning to write, to spell, and to read are, from the very beginning, it kind of empowers them to read really well, really quickly. Big books, Velveteen Rabbit. So they're not stuck with Jane and Dick for 3 till 3rd or 4th grade. So that is Romalda Spalding's method. And Dr. Samuel T. Orton and Romalda Spalding took lots of children, and they did this method with lots of children, and they found that he specialized in helping dyslexic and other learning disabled children, and Mrs. Spalding tutored children under Dr. Orton's supervision. Mrs. Spalding taught older children with Dr. Orton's guidance and realized that the techniques that worked so well with the child having the most difficulty also prevented problems from developing in other children in her classes. So this is what happened with us. We have 5 children, and as we started doing this method, two of them had dyslexic tendencies, and the second they started doing the method, it erased all dyslexia from them, and I will show you how that happened. We had 2 or 3 learning disabilities like right here waiting for our children to just step into them, and us having to go into some major therapy and all of that. And because we picked this method, those went away. It was really cool how it happened. Child will be spelling, they will be forming their letters before they know what reading is. So they're using their pencil and they're making their own workbook every single year. And these 2 books, it's really the cheapest. This is the cheapest English grammar, spelling, writing, cheapest method out there. There's nothing, this is probably $125 for this. And once you have your supplies, every year you will get your children a little notebook, and they create their own, there's no worksheets, there's no busy work, there's no filling in the blanks. They create their notebooks. The struggle that we had when I stumbled onto Wanda Sinceri and Spell to Write and Read, she also had on her website, and I will put her website below, but I will also put where I got some of these resources, because right now the BHI Books website is a little confusing to me, and there are simpler places to pick up your stuff, okay? If you are starting out and you have a 4-year-old, you need your phonogram cards are helpful, and then I'll show you a couple of other things you can get that are helpful. The struggle that we had with writing your way to reading ended the second we started doing cursive. And this for me was a huge breakthrough, because Romalda Spalding wants the letters to be equal and same space and everything. And it was like pulling eye teeth trying to get this perfect handwriting out of my 5-year-old child. When I stumbled on Cursive First, which is a $25 little paper book that just talks about doing cursive first instead of print first, I stumbled on the book. I ordered the supplies, but my favorite supply I got from a Montessori outlet. There's 2 things that I got that helped me impart cursive into my children. And the second we started writing in cursive, her reading, she started being able to read immediately. Her writing became so much better, and it completely eliminated frustration for us. And I think it was because with cursive, one letter connects to the next letter, connects to the next letter, and there's a space. One letter connects to the next letter. And so it makes more sense in the brain because the letters are connecting with one another. And for whatever reason, that once we did cursive first, that was opened up all the windows for us. The windows of heaven came upon our homeschool. And so next time I'm going to talk more about cursive first, and I'm going to talk about my little sandpaper letters. I am so sad about these letters. This is my sandpaper letter. And as you can see, there is a dot where you're going to start your letter. And then there's a top line, a bottom line, and the dotted middle line. You cannot get these anymore. I would love to go ahead and develop them. And see, there is a red dot. The white dot is where you start. The red dot is where you stop. And then you come back around and then connector. And I loved these letters, and I love that they have the top line and the base line. This is the top line, this is the base line, and this is the midpoint. And cursive first, and plus a couple of little Montessori tools. They do have cursive sandpaper letters on Amazon. I'll link it down below. But if I were you and I ordered those letters, I would take a Sharpie and I would draw this line on the bottom and then a line up at the top and the dotted line, because that is really, really important. The spatial part of that is really, really important part of this program. And these are all stops and start places. And if you don't have that, it's much harder to get a good handwriting, a good B or B. So the other piece of the puzzle is your kids, and this is the back of one of their little notebooks. The kids are going to really need to learn the clock, because when they learn how to write, they're going to, especially the clock, these are called clock letters. So I'm going to start at the baseline. I'm going to 2 on the clock, go back around the clock, down and connector. And I'm going to talk through it as I do it. This is one of my favorite things. And the other thing was a little sandbox, and I will link that below as well. It was a little wooden box with colored sand. And you shake the box so the sand is smooth, and then they write in the sand and they talk through. I start on the baseline, I go up to 2 on the clock, I come back around and then down connector. This is not an A, this is an ah. And so the cursive first was giant. That is one thing that really, really, really got us kind of going in the right direction and having quicker success. This is Mackenzie's first, these are called learning logs. And each year they get a blank learning log, and in the front, they're gonna write, they get, during the year, they're supposed to practice writing their name once a month. So they get better and better at writing their name. And then they start with the word list A, and they're gonna write their words on there. And at the very bottom, they're gonna make a sentence with as many of the words from the word list as possible. Some kids will do 1 word list a week. Some will do 1 every 2 weeks. This is Mackenzie's kindergarten year. Now we have been doing print, but I want you to see, this is a sample of her handwriting, her kindergarten year, her word list. And I thought it's pretty good. She's a kindergartner. Most of the adults I know, their handwriting is not that good. And the reason I know cursive first is important is because I learned print first, because I did the Spalding method very strictly, and they did print first, and I had horrible handwriting and struggled with handwriting the whole time in school. My kids were blessed. They all got to do cursive first. This is kindergarten, and then this is first grade. So 1 year later, that's a few months later, we started with her first grade, and that is her handwriting from first grade. Now, all of these words have been marked, and that's an important part of the program, and I'll explain that next time. But probably one of the greatest possessions I have are all of the learning logs from all 5 of my kids. In the front, every year they put their name and all that. This is Megan at 4 years old. That's her 4-year-old learning log. And in the back, they have the 29 spelling rules. And so the program is you're gonna learn 70 phonograms and 29 spelling rules. And you're gonna do it every year, pre-K through 5th grade. And you're gonna do it again and again. You're just gonna go over and over and over it. The mom or the teacher is going to use these same books, McCall-Harby's Standard Test in Reading. So this is reading comprehension. And I forgot how often you do this, but probably once a week. You read a little passage, and they're all real interesting, the science and all these passages. You have 9 questions. The child answers the 9 questions, and then you get a little scoring sheet. Teacher has a little scoring sheet, and then you have the reading comprehension. And you know, in first grade, they're at third grade reading level. Second grade, they're college age reading level. This diagnoses their reading comprehension. So, and this is the cute little primary. This is the one they use right when they start. Look how cute the little stories are. And they're just yes or no questions. So the McCall-Harby Test Lessons in Primary Reading. Love these books. Very simple. It is very, very simple. Now, you may be concerned about your ability to teach this method, and you don't need to be. You don't need to be concerned at all. If you know this is the right method, number one, it is, I promise you. Number two, if you know, I just need a few tools. I need the main books, and they come in a little kit from cbd.com, and I'll put that below. And then I'm going to link everything below. A couple of things from the Montessori outlet store just to help me kind of with cursive first, have some really fun tools to start learning cursive. Your primary learning log is going to be for your little kids. And then as they get older, they get a big kid learning log. I just brought down the primary learning logs because I want to show y'all how amazing their handwriting was. Young, really young. Last thing I want to discuss is homeschooling does not need to be just you teaching. I had to get really creative because I kept having children every 18 months. So I started out with a method. I wanted to learn the method myself. I will put links down below. There is a Zoom class where you can actually sit and take hours and hours of a class where they're going to teach you precisely how to teach this method. Once you take the class, you will be extremely empowered, and it will be the best $200 investment you have ever made. Take the 3-day class if you can, because you can use it on one child, you can use it on 5 children, you can start tutoring, you can help teenagers down the street with learning disabilities. It is so powerful. It's such a powerful method on teaching reading and spelling. But what happened with me was it was too much for me to teach. It got to the point where I could do pre-K and K, but once they started going to the first, second, third, I needed help. And so I contacted the local college and hired a girl from the education department that was a student. I paid her $10 an hour. I taught her what I wanted her to do with the phonogram cards or whatever. And she was my assistant, and she only came from like 9 to 11 in the morning. But you can hire a little assistant to help you and to go over the cards. Then the next step I did was I got on Craigslist and I said, I need a homeschool teacher. And I just went on Craigslist and I got the most amazing teacher. Miss Kim was with us for 7 years and she did 1st through 5th. I did pre-K, K, and part of 1st, and then gave the kids, once they knew how to read, I would hand them over to her. She took 1st through 5th. She did a great job, and she came at 8 in the morning and left at noon. So she only had to work half days, and she did our math and English, and then she would do history half the year. We went year round. We didn't stop in the summer. So history, and then once they were done with the history, they would do science, and they rotate the extra subjects. So it was not super difficult. She was very afraid to teach the method because my kids knew it better than she did by the time she came along. And I said, and this is true for you, if you are going to order a learning log for yourself. This is my learning log, my primary learning log. And what I did in 2008 was I copied the teacher's table of contents, and you paste it on the front where you would normally do your signatures. And then I did section A, and I wrote a sentence. And then I did section B and my very best handwriting. So because you're the teacher, if you stay one day ahead of the child in your learning log, you can teach it. As long as you're staying one day ahead of the child, you've done your words, you kind of read through, and in your course books, it's going to tell you exactly what the A page is supposed to look like and why. And if you just stay 1 or 2 days ahead of the child, you can teach it. So I told Miss Kim, they may know it better than you, but you're going to make your own learning log, and they're at the beginning of the school year, and you're going to plan out your first week of teaching and write your learning log that you're going to be teaching them, and you're just going to stay one day ahead of them. And I just told her, don't judge yourself for 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks of doing this, you tell me what you think of this method. And after 6 weeks, she was kind of a bad speller. After 6 weeks, she was like, this is incredible. It's the most incredible way I've ever heard of teaching reading. And so anyway, Miss Kim was impressed. She ended up thinking the method was amazing and ended up being a tutor and has helped several students go from a subpar reader and horrible reading comprehension to several grade level increases within 2 to 3 months of her tutoring using this method. She was completely impressed by the method and ended up also going to a dyslexia conference at one point. And they, at the conference, you pay all this money to go to a dyslexia conference, and they just said, this method, which Ms. Kim was already doing, is the best method for a dyslexic child to learn. And so I will talk about it more the next video, but I think this is a really good overview and kind of gives y'all a start. Please leave a comment down below if you want to see me answer really specific questions. I feel like this is a really good start. I'm going to put stuff down below to link if you want to get your hands on some of the supplies and start reading through the books. You don't have to do the 3-day class. I'm a teacher and I love learning, and so I did it 2 or 3 times. I probably could teach the class myself. But for sure, you probably want to get your hands on the material and start reading. There's a lot of information, but the cool thing about it is if you do it this year and you're kind of consistent, next year you're going to be better at it. You're doing the same thing every year, year after year. You're just going up. Same method, you're just going to go a little bit higher in the reading list. So hope y'all enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.